So welcome everyone to today's webinar organized by the Department of Value Education in collaboration with the St. Anthony's College Shillong Alumni Association with the support of the IEQAC of the college. So the topic for today's webinar is honesty, especially during this time, especially during the COVID times. And we are very fortunate to have with us an Anthonian himself, Sir N. Zimic, who is the Deputy Commissioner of the Indian Revenue Service, who will be basically giving us the seminar on today's topic. So for the formal introduction and welcome of the resource person, I call upon Father Joby Joseph, our Head of Department and our Rector, to give a formal welcome and introduction, and also after that to lead us into prayer. Father Joby.
All right, we will start with a prayer, then we'll go to the introduction. Dear friends, as we come together for this webinar today, honesty in one's life and even during COVID times, maybe be a time that we are put to test much more than other times, be it in our exams, be it in our classes, be it in our own personal life. Honesty, it's still the best policy we know. And we want to ask God, who is truth, eternal wisdom, and who is fullness of truth, that he may make us like unto him, truthful, we may know him, and that we may live in truth. We listen to a reading from the Holy Scripture from the Gospel of St. John. Then the Lord said, if you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Lord of our God, we pray that we may really know the truth, live in truth, and truth may really make us your disciples, living, professing truth in word and in deed. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Amen. Dear students, we know one of our students in the last week from the Department of Biochemistry, Liam Muan Sang Walthe, who is on our screen, passed out in 2018. He passed away due to post-COVID complications. In fact, he had also lost his mother, I think, a few weeks before. We observe a minute of silence and pray for the departed soul and for the family that have lost both. I'm sure they are up in heaven. May the Lord bless them, grant them eternal rest. We pray, may God grant them eternal rest and may their souls rest in peace. Amen. Dear students, dear Anthonians, and all those who are attending, seeing this webinar live, we are making it as a national event, being we have participants from all over the country, of course, and being on webinar across the globe. We are indeed happy to have Naham Hui, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, Naham Hui Zimic, or N. Zimic, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Revenues, who was an Anthonian in the year 2005 to 8, and he was also a captain, I remember, of Stephen Hall, a Stephanian, and of course more Anthonian. Thank you. He was there with us for last year for sharing a session with us. And I'm sure our students, someone who is living in a profession as high as this and who has had his entire focus on academically and a career ahead, not only merely a career, but a career that is lived in honesty. That's something that we really appreciate in Zimic. And I thought a day like this, he's the right person to address our students, address Anthonians, and he is someone who has worked before you and who can set an example, not only in career, we know, also in living out the theme of the day, honesty. We wish him all the best. Zimic, welcome once again, and our prayers are with you, with your family, and may you always live up to the call of the Lord and call of the duty. All the best, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Father, for such a generous introduction. Am I audible? Am I audible? Can you
Yes, sir,
hear me?
yes. Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me, right? Well, it has always been a pleasure to come back to St. Anthony's, and I'm indeed very grateful to Father Joby for this invitation. In the first place, I'm neither special nor important. That is what you should actually take into consideration very seriously. I don't consider myself as an important person. At the same time, I don't consider myself as a special person, but which is why I'm very grateful for the very fact that, Father Joby has actually asked me to come back to St. Anthony's. In the first place, whatever I say may not actually be taken at face value. It should be actually consumed with a pinch of salt. In a sense, there is no such thing as absolute truth. The philosophers would say that the only absolute truth in this world is love as it is. Like, for the graduates or students in physics who are actually doing BSc course in physics, you would know this Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty, the idea of these fundamental limits. In a sense, in a particular quantum system, the more you know about the momentum or the velocity of a system, the less you know about the position of that particular quantum system, and vice versa. And further still, even Stephen Hawking would actually talk about this concept of space-time singularity, to actually find that single elegant equation to find the answer to all the questions of life, which he actually was not able to achieve. So in a sense, if you are able to, reach that level reach that level of intelligence, then probably it would be like, knowing or understanding the mind of God. Now, what I'm actually trying to say is that what I say is not necessarily true to itself. But the thing is that if I can only add a sort of a perspective into your way of thinking and how you think, then I will be very much satisfied. In the first place, St. Anthony's is, as everyone knows, the North Star or the lighthouse, or shall I say the North Star of the entire Northeastern region on matters education. It is synonymous with, shall I say, St. Stephen's of Delhi. For example, way back in the 1980s, 50% of the Indian Foreign Service officers from the entire country were actually recruited from, St. Stephen's. And at one point of time, I think as late as the 1990s, I think 40 to 45% of the Indian administrative service officers were also recruited from St. Stephen's. Now, what I'm saying is St. Anthony's has a huge or a big reputation in the Northeastern region. All of us as students or members of the alumni have a huge responsibility to actually live up to the expectations of the society, to live up to the expectations of our siblings, our parents, our villages, our towns, and even our cities. It is more or less like, way back when I was doing my final year, I think the chairman of All India Radio, I think the regional director of All India Radio in Shillong, I met him and he said something like St. Anthony's is actually like the Oxford of the Northeastern region, which is true. Because, as facts and statistics would have it, I was of the concerned that I think at one point of time, 60% of the members of the Legislative Assembly of the state of Meghalaya were actually from St. Anthony's. Exactly in the same manner, ever since Winston Churchill, 70% of the prime ministers of UK were actually products of Oxford University. That includes even the current Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is a law graduate from Oxford, his predecessor Theresa May, her predecessor David Cameron, and even Tony Blair, Prime Minister John Major, Edward Heath, Harold Wilson, Harold Macmillan, and even, let's say, the first woman Prime Minister of UK or Great Britain, Margaret Thatcher. She was actually the gold medalist. She was, I think, probably the first gold medalist in Oxford University. So when we talk about St. Anthony's, but before I actually entered, St. Anthony's or walked down the corridors of St. Anthony's, I had this, thought or impression about this, thinking that probably this is the best educational institution that I can vouch for, I can search for in the entire Northeastern region, which obviously is true. there is no doubt or denying the fact that, St. Anthony's is definitely the best, collegiate institution in the entire Northeast. There are certain advantages that you enjoy because, geographically it is located in, what shall I say, a naturally air-conditioned city, unlike some of the metropolitan cities of India, like Delhi or Calcutta or Mumbai, where it is very crowded, where it is very dusty, and the pollution levels are pretty high. Besides, talking about St. Anthony's, shall I say, you have a healthy political environment as such. The entire campus is clustered around a healthy, societal, administrative, political environment, which allows the, creativity or the imaginative faculty of the students of their particular college to actually flourish. Why I talk about healthy political environment? Because let me take an example of the Chief Minister of Meghalaya, who is Sri Conrad Sharmaji, who was actually a graduate in economics from St. Stephen's, and then she went up to Pennsylvania University, I think Wharton School, Penn, one of the top Ivy League institutions, for his master's in business administration. In a sense, I think probably he is one of the best and the most educated chief ministers of the country. So talking about St. Anthony's, it's all about greatness. It's all about intellectual achievements. It's all about being involved in that process of rigorous knowledge production, which we all have to, imbibe ourselves in our day-to-day lives. And when Father Chobi actually called me, he mentioned about three things. Jimmy, why not you talk to the students about education, career, and honesty to one's duty in times of COVID? Shall I say, even in this COVID period, for a person who is rather very committed, or a student who is very disciplined, it doesn't make any difference. This is what I've been saying to so many civil service aspirants who are actually settled in Delhi from the Northeast. Whether it is COVID or not COVID, it doesn't make any difference. The materials are available for you in the internet. And besides, everything is available there on the table for you. You just have to bring in the materials, sit at home, lock yourself up, study 10, 12, 13, 14 hours in a day, and, increase your level of intelligence, increase your level of, knowledge acquisition and things like that. So talking about honesty to one's duty, I remember some of the few words that Father Sati used to say. He was actually former vice principal of St. Anthony's. And so also, I think he was a professor of computer science in the Department of Computer Science. And during good night talks in Stephen Hall, he would always come back and say, tell us this thing. Three things he would always repeat. Number one, if you think you are smart, show me your marks. Anybody can know how to dress and act smart and say blah, blah, blah. But if you think you are smart, show me your marks. And the second thing he said was, you can, spend your entire day, waste your whole of energy working from Police Bazaar to Nong Thamai and walk up and down. But at the end of the day, I think there is no other thing that is actually easier for you to do. Walk around, to roam around is probably the easiest thing any college student can actually do. And the third thing he said, you may be good in so many extracurricular activities. This is what he actually said when I was president of, the college student body in Stephen Hall. And during the, sports week, some students were very good in, as artists. Some are very good in soccer. Some are very good in volleyball. Some are very good in basketball. Some are very good in music and things like that. And some are very good as choreographers and dancers. But at the end of the day, I was also involved in one of the shows, whatever it is. But he used to always say this. You may be acting very smart, you may be very efficient here on the stage, doing this, doing that. But at the end of the day, if you fail in your exams, and if you are not up to the levels that you are expected to or supposed to in your exams, all of it, all of your talents and skills here on the stage doesn't make sense, which I think is true. That has always stayed on my mind. As students, whether it be final year students or first year students or second year students, I tell you this very seriously and take it very, very, very seriously. What Father Sati said those, more than 10 years ago has stayed with me in my mind. And in fact, it is very true. There is no denying the fact that we have to be focused on our primary responsibilities, and that is to study and study. You can go around, walk around, have fun, meet up friends. You may even have your own girlfriends. You may even have your own boyfriends. That is okay. Nobody is going to complain about it as long as we enjoy every bit of those things in the right spirit. But at the end of the day, what you cannot fail here in St. Anthony's is that you neglect your studies. That is something we should actually never be doing. To quote another example, the thing is, Dr. Montet Singh Ahluwalia, he's probably one of the greatest economists of India. He was actually a graduate of St. Stephen's Economics. He was the core medalist of his batch in St. Stephen's in Delhi. And then he went up to Oxford University for masters in economics. And later on, when he was an MPhil student in Oxford, he actually became the president of the Oxford Union, one of the few Indians to actually be president of Oxford Union. And later on, he became deputy chairperson or chairman of the Planning Commission, which means, he's definitely one of the greatest economists that the country ever had. When I remember his interview about 10 years ago, where he said that, back in the day in St. Stephen's, we were taught one just single dictum. There was just one commandment, whether it be in the college or even if you go home, your parents would say just one thing: without marks, there is no future. Without marks, there is no future. There are certain exceptions. Certain exceptional lines can always be thrown everywhere in every context. But the matter of the fact is that in general sense, I think this makes pretty much sense. And Father Saji would even talk about this idea of educated monsters and, being educated and being unemployed. The matter of the fact is that, getting a job to work for is actually a validation of your entire educational experience. And the thing is, after graduation or after your master's from a university, if you're not able to find a job, or not necessarily a government job, the percentage of the government servants in the country would be just around 2%, let's say, maximum 1.5% of the country. State source of the central government, around 50,000 central government employees, 50 lakh central employees, and around 1.8 crore state government employees. So it is around just 1.5% of the total population of the country. So I'm not talking about government employees or those involved in the corporate sector, who are working in the formal sector. When I'm talking about a job, means any job that is worth living, that brings dignity, that brings bread to the table for your family members, for your children, for your wife. So what I'm saying is, getting a job is actually a validation of your entire educational experience. Now, the thing is, those students from economics would know you have this idea of Phillips curve, that, the rate of unemployment is inversely proportional to the rate of inflation, which means if the rate of unemployment goes up, then the thing is that, rate of inflation falls down, and then there is deflation, which is itself even bad for the economy. If you speak in a macroeconomic sense, forget about microeconomics. If in a macroeconomic sense, if inflation goes down and if there is deflation, it is actually bad for the economy. What I'm actually trying to actually convey is this: unless there is, shall I say, galloping inflation or runaway inflation, inflation itself is actually good for the economy. What I'm actually trying to say is that, the higher is the rate of unemployment, the more serious is the problem for the economy. Now, the thing is, taking this into consideration, I remember one particular lecture in Stephen Hall by the current chancellor of Don Bosco University and the former vice principal of Anthony's. He was also a professor of computer science in St. Anthony's, Father Joseph Nelland. He is definitely one of those persons that I really miss. I'm being very frank with this. He used to smile around, and then he used to come and sometimes even tickle and say some funny things. Rather a very humorous person. I love his personality. And I remember this one particular statement that he gave. He said, this concept of cross-section area in physics. Now, the thing is that cross-section in simple terms, layman terms, means, non-empty intersection of, let's say, a solid body, a three-dimensional, space, a solid body, three-dimensional space with that of a plane. In other words, the smaller is the cross-section area, the deeper is the penetration, or the deeper is the, intersection. So if our minds, if our thinking, and if our activities, if our energies are actually focused in a smaller area, then higher is the level of excellence. Now, the thing is, you may be a jack of all trades, you may want to dabble in so many things. Okay, you may be a good dancer, you may be a good sports star, you may be a good singer, you may be whatever it is, do it, indulge it. But the matter of the fact is that the highest percentage of your time, your energy, your resources, your mental intellect should actually be focused in the rigorous process of knowledge production, which you and I mean, are actually supposed to do in a college setting and environment. Apart from that, I think it was April 20th, 2008, as far as I can remember, because I left St. Anthony's on 22nd of April, 2008, and I landed up on the same day in Delhi. So probably it was 20th of April after our final exams. Many of the Khasi friends would know. Many of those folks from Meghalaya would know. One of the persons that I really respect, and one of the former Anthonians, Professor Marbani. Professor Marbani. He was actually a BSc graduate in in mathematics from St. Anthony's. He went on to do his PhD in mathematics from Germany. I think Advanced Institute of International Institute of some Advanced Mathematical Studies, probably in Berlin, or I can't exactly remember. And he said this would go to some of those, activism-minded, activism-focused sort of students in the college. He said that, how many of you, he said this, how many of you want to go to politics after your graduation or after your master's program? And in fact, few of them actually raised hands, but he gave a very special advice, that has even gone down to my head. He said, politics is actually not a career. Politics is actually a service that you render to the community. It's not a career. Don't ever make a mistake. Politics should never be a career. It should be a service that we all have to render to the society. So he said, if you want to flourish in politics and want to make a career for yourself in politics, the first thing is you should actually try to excel and establish yourself a firm career, and then later on leapfrog into it rather than directly jumping into it, because it, really, it has actually destroyed many lives of many talented, brilliant, intelligent youngsters, even those folks in JNU and Delhi University. I had very brilliant friends, who at the master's level started, radical, social political activism, and many of them, even after 10, 15 years, are just nowhere to be found in a solid setting. They are just wandering around. So I think it is advisable that we have a firm, stable career. Because I'm a bureaucrat, for example, I will say, talking about, leapfrogging from bureaucracy to politics. I will give an example. For example, Subhash Chandra Bose was in the ICS. Morarji Desai was in the ICS. He was chief minister of the great state of Bombay until 1960. Bombay was, only in 1960, Bombay state was divided into the state of Maharashtra and that of Gujarat. And besides, in 1960s and 1950s, he actually became the longest serving finance minister of India. He presented 10 union budgets of the government of India. I think Chidambaram was probably presented around 9 union budgets. He was also a stalwart when it comes to matters public finance. Chidambaram was a gold medalist in statistics from Madras University, and he went on to earn his master's degree in business administration from Harvard. And not only that, I think within that span of 2 years, he earned 2 degrees from Harvard Law School and that of Harvard Business School, which is sort of a spectacular feat, which is never easy. And so Morarji Desai was in the ICS. For example, Kapil Sibal, the former cabinet minister of India, his 2 younger brothers are in the IAS. His elder brother became the foreign secretary of India, one of the most illustrious or aristocratic, Punjabi families in Delhi. And he got elected from Jani Chowk. And the thing is that he was in the IAS. He was a graduate of Stephens. And then, he quit the IAS and he went to Harvard for his LLM. And then I think doctorate in jurisprudence, even at Harvard, came back, became additional Solicitor General of India, resigned from the job, and then later on contested the Lok Sabha election. Talk about Manish Shankar Iyer. He was also a graduate in economics from St. Stephen's, and then went on to Cambridge University for master's in economics. Returned in his very first attempt, got into IAS. He took the foreign service, and he became, I think, some ambassador of some country, and entered into politics. And besides, we talk about Yashwant Sinha, the former finance minister and the former foreign minister of India, probably one of the best, finance ministers we ever had. I think during the Vajpayee regime, he was from Bihar, but he was also a former IAS officer. He entered the IAS at the age of 22 or 23. And you talk about Arvind Kejriwal, who was from the Indian Revenue Service. You talk about the current foreign minister of India, Jai Shankar, who was also a graduate from St. Stephen's, and then he was also in the Indian Foreign Service, became the foreign secretary of India, and he was even former ambassador to China. And besides, mention may also be made of the former foreign minister of India, Natwar Singh, who was also into the Indian Foreign Service. What I'm actually trying to say is that, there have been many, many, many people are actually from the medical fraternity or from the engineering profession, or even as technocrats or even bureaucrats who had actually later on, after 20, 25 years of service, establishing themselves in a particular profession, leapfrogging into politics. So I think the advice is, I think it is not advisable for young students to directly, jump, or shall I say, leapfrog into politics soon after your graduation or your master's program. Talking about bureaucracy, since I'm from the bureaucracy, I think I will say a little more about bureaucracy. I think even from the Northeast, we have had very good, brilliant, famous bureaucrats of the government of India. For example, James Michael Lindo, who was also a graduate from St. Stephen's, is probably one of the most upright and one of the most, shall I say, famous or popular, chief election commissioners that India had ever had. He succeeded MS Gill and became the chief election commissioner of India. He graduated from St. Stephen's at the age of 20 to enter the IAS. He even holds a black belt degree in martial arts. I mean, if some of you don't know. For example, even Mr. W. Shaiza from Manipur, I think he was one of the first persons from Manipur to actually enter Oxford University. He did his master's in Oxford in 1954, 1955, and later on entered IAS in 1955 and became the chief secretary of Delhi as early as 1990s, 91, 92, 93 or something. Mention may also be made of, for example, Viel Thanga from Mizoram, who was, I think, the first tribal to actually top from this Cotton College. I think in history, he was the gold medalist. And later on, he went on to do his master's in economics in Manchester University. He was also a gold medalist in economics at Manchester University. And his very first attempt, he got into the IAS and later on became the secretary of Northeastern Council. Mention may be also be made of Mr. Sang Liana from Manipur, from Jurajampur. He was into the IBS. He became the commissioner, police commissioner of the entire city of Bangalore. And later on, even got elected from the Lok Sabha constituency of Bangalore, and he became a Lok Sabha member representing a particular constituency in the city of Bangalore. At one point of time, way back, I think in 2008 or 2009, he was voted as one of the top 4 most popular people in the entire state of Karnataka, including Nandan Nilekani, including this Infosys founder, Mr. Murthy, and I think one more person. So he was one of the top 4 persons. Mention may also be made of, for example, let's say, I think this particular person has been in Anthony's campus. He was former secretary of the Northeastern Council, Mr. Amay Singh Loikam from Manipur. At the age of 22, he entered the IAS. He was also a graduate from Stephens in the 1970s, late 1970s. And mind you, to become the secretary of the government of India is a big feat. It's a pretty big achievement. There are very few people from Manipur, from the Northeast who actually become secretaries to government of India. And this amazing Loikam, I think he has become secretary to 3 ministries of the government of India: Donor Ministry, Ministry of Minority Affairs, Department of Heavy Industries, and things like this. So we also have many good examples, even amongst ourselves. So they are an inspiration for us. When we talk about bureaucracy, they can be taken as examples where we actually draw inspiration. We may think that folks in Delhi are actually pretty much smarter, they are much more intelligent, and they are much more brilliant, things like that. A student from St. Anthony's going to Delhi will not necessarily become more intelligent or more brilliant. The only thing is that because of the exposure and the competitive environment and the aggressive mental competition that is around there, will only make you more knowledgeable and more efficient and more effective in the way you deal things. It is not as if your level of intelligence or IQ is going to be any greater. So what I'm saying is, whether you study in Anthony's, whether you're in Nehru, or even if you go for your master's program, I think provided you are able to consistently study and study, I think that there is nothing that is going to stop you. As an example, I think I'm also one of the few persons to actually get selected into the civil service within a short span of time. I think from my own home state, and I think it was my second. Yes, it was my second attempt. I failed in my first attempt, but I took only 2 years to crack the civil service exam. But the amount of efforts and labor that I had put in is immense. Sometimes you will have to study, 14 hours, 15 hours a day. And the thing is, that goes on for 3-4 months. When you're preparing for mains exam, you need to have the stamina. You need to have that, physical fitness to actually carry on, not necessarily just, the ability to study. And the thing is, that thing, studying for 10 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours should go on for at least 2-3 years if you want to crack civil service. And very few students from Northeast had actually entered the bureaucracy, especially through the national civil service exams, which is rather worrisome. I think in the last 7 or 8 years, very few persons had entered. I think in the last 6 years, no one from Meghalaya. In the last 6 years, no one from Mizoram. That I can say. I think even in Nagaland, except for last year, it took about 5 years for Nagaland to produce a successful bureaucrat through the National Civil Service exam. So I think we have to work hard. We really have to work hard. Now, see, the thing is, I'm not an academic, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an engineer. So I think I will dabble more into, civil service. I think because, as I have seen, many students are also actually civil service aspirants, whether for the state civil service exams or the national civil service exams. Now, the thing is, gone are the days of the 1970s and the 1980s. Those days are gone. I'm saying this to most of the students from humanities. The thing is, majority of the students are actually from humanities, but this is the thing that you should take into consideration. Gone are the days where many historians or political science graduates used to actually penetrate civil service. Those days are gone. Now, the thing is, the highest number of recruits are actually technocrats, especially engineers. In 2017 and 2018, something like that, I think 19 of the top 20 rankers in the civil service exams were all engineers. Most, I think 80% of were actually products of, the IITs. So what I'm actually saying is that even if you study humanities in college, you should actually be studying basic mathematics, because civil service aptitude test is a qualifying paper. Unless and until you are able to go through or sail through this particular paper in civil service exams in the prelims, you are not going to be able to sail through, because this is a qualifying paper. There has to be a minimum percentage that you have to obtain. Now, the thing, it will deal with reasoning, quantitative aptitude, and logical analysis and comprehension and things like that, but it never comes easy. I have seen so many graduates, BSc and physics, mathematics and physics graduates from Delhi University struggling with the CSAP papers. Unless and until you practice, it's never going to come easy. So one of the advantages I had when I was doing my graduation was because I'm from the history honors. Okay, I was a gold medalist in history, but it doesn't make much sense. That is nothing after all. I studied probably, 1 hour per day, to actually become the gold medalist of the university, which is nothing at all. Take it at face level. Being a university gold medalist is nothing. It's really nothing. Cracking the civil service exam will be, let's say, shall I say, 4 or 5 times as hard as becoming the gold medalist of a university, especially for the humanities. So the thing is, when I was doing my graduation, I used to do this dabble in mathematics, for example, basically calculus, differentiation, and integration with some of my friends, BSc students in Anthony's and Edmonds. For example, my best friend in Anthony's was a friend of mine from Manipur, who is actually in the Indian Statistical Service right now. He was also the gold medalist of the batch in 2008 in BSc Statistics in Anthony's, in the whole of Nehu, Northeastern Yield University. He was gold medalist. Now he's in the Indian Statistical Service, working for the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, or MOSPI, in the Ministry of Statistics. Now, the thing is that, I learned many things about matrices and permutations and combinations and differentiation and integration, without which I would not have been able to clear, CSAT exam. I'm telling you very frankly. And even in the mains paper, in the general studies, you will have certain, questions on statistics, for example, especially how to read and analyze and interpret graphs and whatever, even many questions on population statistics. Now, the thing is, very recently, the bureaucracy as such, the government of India has come to the realization that, rather than recruit these, brilliant people who have good writing skills, it is better to recruit engineers who have brilliant, fast-paced solutions for all the problems conflicting the Indian society, which is true. They have technological solutions, immediate solutions to the, most nascent problems conflicting the society. Take the example of China. Because China has made tremendous progress in the last 30 years. This is what the country has realized, and this is what, the change in orientation that has occurred in the bureaucracy in the last 10, 15 years. Now, the thing is that, you look at China. I'll give you examples of China. In the year 1996, somewhere around 96 or 1995, I think, in the International Mathematics Olympic that was conducted in Rome, I think 6 of the top 10 rankers were all Chinese. You see? Out of those top 10 rankers, all 6 of them were Chinese, and 5 of them became engineers, except for one who became a professor of mathematics in University of Peking or Beijing. And now the thing is, since 1990s, you talk about the president of China who succeeded Deng Xiaoping. For example, President Jiang Zemin, who ruled for, I think, 10 years or 8 years in China in the 1990s. He had a doctorate in MIT in electrical engineering. And Massachusetts Institute of Technology is probably the most advanced and the most, shall I say, prestigious technological institution that anyone can go to. Apart from Harvard, he had a PhD in electrical engineering. You talk about Hu Jintao, who actually succeeded him, he was a hydraulic engineer who was actually trained in Tsinghua Technological University, which is probably the best university in China. And talk about the current president of China, Xi Jinping, who is actually a technocrat trained in the best technological university in China, Tsinghua University, and who also a technocrat was in Texas before he actually entered the party bureaucracy of the Communist Party of China. Now, the thing is, China is actually a land of engineers. The reason as to why so much of construction activities actually happen, whether it be infrastructure, let's say bridges or, hello. Father, are you able to hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's audible. Just go on, carry on.
Those engineers in China, for example, if you make a between China and India, I'm a revenue officer dealing with, let's say, import and export. Now, the thing is, you would be surprised to actually realize that, the top 10, let's say, there are 30 mega ports in India. You have, let's say,
Zimik? Just a minute. He will log in. Zimik, can you hear me? Yes, proceed. Maybe you can stop your video and talk the audio. I think the connection is little. Dear students, just a minute. We will see if we are able to. There's a little problem with the network connection of Zosimi.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, yes. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. I think we'll keep the video off because,
Okay, okay, Father.
yeah. Go
See, the
ahead.
thing is, what was I saying? Yeah, yeah. I was making a comparison between China and that of India. Now, the thing is, if you look at the major ports of India, there are 30 major ports of India. For example, let's say Kanla, Mundra, Marmugao, and let's say Navasheva Port or Mumbai Port or Mangalore Port, Cochin Port, Visakhapatnam, let's say Tuticorin or Ennore, or let's say Chennai, Haldia, Goa, and Paradip. So we have 13 major ports in India. Now, the thing is that
Hello, Zosimi.
The students, in the meantime, if you have any questions that you want to, let us say, ask later, you can type in your chat box and post it so that Sir Zimik accordingly he can answer it later.
So Albert, we'll just wait 2 minutes. If sir can log in, the net connection is gone. Else, we will ask, we will slowly wind up, and maybe we will ask, we will give sir's email address. So students, if they want to get in touch with him,
Okay.
we can.
Okay, Father. Okay.
Just 2 minutes.
Yeah, Father.
Sir Albert, I think he's not getting connected. Dear students, I think we will slowly wind up. I'm sorry because there is a network problem.
Okay, Father.
The email address of sir is there on the chat box. We'll put it in both in the YouTube too. So if some of them may have questions, so if they can get back,
You can bear. Okay.
you can just tell them so that they are aware of
Yes.
it.
Okay. So the email of Sazamik is available there. It is zamikayu@gmail.com. Okay, it's available on the chat as well as in YouTube. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, you can send your questions in the email given, and accordingly, Sazamik would reply to your questions. So yes, we are very sorry, dear students, but I mean for this, we are not able to go ahead with the webinar. We apologize for that. So I call upon Sir Kesterly if he can come over and give the vote of thanks. As you all know, this is done also in collaboration with the Alumni Association of the college.
Okay, good evening to Father Rector, Father Jubis, Albert, Sir Nathaniel, and my dear young friends and others who are attending this webinar. On behalf of St. Anthony's College, especially Department of Value Education, and on special mention also from the Alumni Association, I would like to take this opportunity to first of all thank Father Rector, Father Joby, for for putting so much hard work in organizing this very important webinar, which is very insightful and very informative for young minds who are present and attending this webinar. And the special thanks goes to Sir Enzimic for his inputs and his insightful information that he has shared, and the experiences that he had shared as an Antonian with regards to how one can go about in choosing a life after college, okay, for which he had give a lot of examples of so many personalities of a great country, and even from our northeast states, okay, of how much hard work they've put in, and the motivation that they have in them to never give up, to reach to such high positions, and always ever humble. And also especially to Sir Zimik for being being very kind and sharing so much information. And you could see from the way he was interacting with all of us in this webinar, he had been very humble, but also at the same time very informative of all the all the information that he was wanting to share. And as we all know, in this world of online interaction, where sometimes we cannot trust technology a lot, especially in these circumstances where sometimes the bandwidth goes down. But still, he has put in a lot of effort in delivering what he wants to deliver to all of us. And I'm sure all of us who have been attending it, and especially for me, I've been very much enriched with whatever you have shared with us. And I'm sure for all of us who are present here, especially our young students, you have been, been motivated by, even if it's the presentation is quite short, but still it had motivated. And from the questions being put up by each one of you, I'm sure it had drawn a lot of interest in each one of you. I'm sure so we'll get back to each one of you. A special thank goes to Sir Albert also for hosting the program and putting a wonderful introduction to Sir Zimik and the program that is being organized. And a special thanks also goes to Sir Nat for the background work, for seeing that this webinar goes off smoothly without any technical glitches, and we are able to have a wonderful presentation, though it was very, very short. So thank you so much, and have a nice evening. Stay safe, stay strong.
So thank you, Sir Castelli, for the wonderful vote of thanks that you have given to each and every one of us, especially to Sir Zimik, who is the resource person for this webinar. My dear students, even though we are not able to connect with Sir Zimik, but I believe you have received something from the webinar today. If you notice, what he said especially was the responsibility, not forgetting your primary responsibility. And I believe that is the most honest, let us say, action that you can take with regard to your studies. Okay, apart from doing everything, please do not forget your primary responsibility. And this is, if you are doing that, then we can say that yes, we are honest to yourself and to your family also. Okay, so before we wind up, I would like to ask Father Joby if he has any let's say information to be given, and after that we will wind up the session.
Okay, dear students, we are very, very sorry. Okay, those are, I'm sure, beyond us, as you have excuses or reasons that sometimes classes you are not attending, not because of anything, technology failures. So today we understand you better. Okay, so this has happened because of so Samik just called me over the phone. He said his network is unstable. In fact, even the telephone gets cut off. But I'm sure you have learned, and his email address is there, and that is available for you. And kindly keep in touch. I'm sure many of us had questions, had come up how to prepare, what are areas to focus. And this is a mind who has just walked a few years before ahead of you. So he'll be able to give you direct and from the field, and as I say, from horse mouth, you can hear it. No, and I'm sure it will prepare you well. Sorry for the inconvenience, little difficulty that we had. I think we will do. It was beyond us, or sometimes it is beyond you. So the attendance link and the email also is posted here in the chat box. It will get enabled only after a few minutes when the session ends, and it will remain only half an hour. Okay, so you pray hard that the network does not fail within that half an hour, and we to do the same. And once again, thank you very much. God bless you. Stay safe.
Thank you, Father. So
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
yeah, thank you. Bye, sir.